Hey everyone, and thanks for joining Progress Texas here at the end of 2020. This is the first time I've worn a suit since March, and like a lot of you, my hair is longer, my waistline is a little bigger. Can't wait to get out of 2020. But in the meantime, while the rest of the world slowed down this year, our work has been busier than ever. In fact, we helped shape 1,300 stories in support of progressive issues here in Texas, generating more than 2 billion views in the media and leading to some of the highest voter turnout Texas has ever seen. Now, this is the end of December, and normally, this is when we would be having our holiday party. We'd be getting together with you and celebrating the year that just was. We can't do that this year, so instead, we're bringing it to you. And what we're also bringing you is one of the best bands in Texas, Tomar and the FCs. They'll be performing live for a special performance for you in a few minutes, along with a few words from our honoree, Lena Hidalgo. But first, before we get there, I'm going to join the Progress Texas staff because in a world full of surprises and in a world full of Zoom, you never know what you're going to get. We're going to talk to you a little bit about some of our favorite moments of the year. I'll see you in a minute.
Hi, my name is Sarah Gutierrez, and I am joined by the rest of the Progress Texas team. We have Satvik, Diana, Wesley, Glenn, and Ed. We are all decked out in our holiday finest. Wesley and Satvik have some awesome Christmas sweaters happening, and Glenn did not get the memo. He claims to be wearing a green shirt, and that is his contribution. However, we are skeptical.
Christmas tree green it is.
He's wearing his cheer.
I saw on Instagram this morning that someone posted that this year has been the longest decade, and it is absolutely true this year. But I will say that we have put out some of our best work and maybe have had our best year to date, I would argue. So Wesley, what was the highlight for you?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it's been a really great year, and it's really hard to choose one major highlight. But if I had to, I would choose our voting rights work. Back in March, when the pandemic first started to really impact our state, we knew it was going to have a huge effect on people's ability to vote and their ability to vote safely. So we started a petition encouraging our lawmakers to implement mail-in voting across the state and make it available for everybody. And that petition actually garnered over 7,000 signatures and a response from the Secretary of State's office. We also worked throughout the year with our partners in different voting rights coalitions to help people register to vote, sign up to be poll workers, and spread the message that every vote must be counted. And in the end, we saw the highest turnout in Texas history in this year's election, which is a huge victory for voting rights.
Yeah, and while we didn't get to expand vote by mail to everyone, we still had some really amazing innovations in voting, like an extra week of voting for early vote, 24-hour polls in Harris County. And, as we head into ledge session, I really hope that we get to keep those innovations instead of starting all over again next time.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree, Satvik. I hope that we can continue to build upon that progress that we had this year. And I want to give a really quick shout out to some of the other orgs who are doing this work alongside us, because it's because of them that we had those innovations. So orgs like Move Texas, Texas Civil Rights Project, Common Cause Texas, and Jolt Texas. And there are so many others. But again, it's because of this coordinated effort from so many different organizations in our state that we had the turnout that we did this year, and we also had the innovations that we saw.
So, Diana, what was a highlight for you?
For me, a highlight this year was the fact that Progress Texas, along with other amazing organizations across the state in the Trust, Respect, Access Coalition, stood up for abortion rights together as an essential thing for healthcare for all Texans. At the start of the pandemic, Abbott should have prioritized public health initiatives to protect Texans, but instead, was going after abortion access with these back and forth lawsuits. But like I said, Progress Texas stood with all of these other coalitions together, and we responded with messaging that abortion is time-sensitive, essential healthcare, and we were able to get coverage statewide and nationally with this positive message.
And what was so critical about that is that a lot of the other states, a lot of the other red states, were looking to Texas to see what Texas could get away with. And it wasn't just Progress Texas, but our partners like the Texas Freedom Network, NARAL, ACLU of Texas, Whole Women's Health, so many more that I don't have time to mention. But everybody getting together and basically pushing back and standing up for this issue set a precedent early on. It was good to see that we could bring the focus back to what was important here, which was the pandemic to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. And it was so great to work in coalition. And it is something that we're going to continue on into this next year in the legislative session, is to continue standing together, positively protecting abortion access for all Texans.
Satvic, what do you think was your highlight in the digital world this year?
So I think it was really about empowering everyday Texans to have their voices heard. Wesley, you mentioned the 7,000 people who signed that petition. They are the reason why the Secretary of State had to respond, right? They forced that to happen. When we were going into the election, over 1,300 Texans signed up to be poll workers because of content we were putting out there, but they stood up for democracy. And that's really what was so beautiful to see, is how even in the midst of a pandemic, the worst that we've experienced in our lifetime, Texans stood up for democracy, they stood up for each other, and they showed what Texans are all about, you know? And it was really beautiful to see.
Glenn, what was your highlight this year?
Well, it's hard to call it a highlight, but let's talk about how Progress Texas and other organizations that work with us and around the state, including local governments, responded to the COVID pandemic. It touched all of our lives very deeply. In fact, we're doing this event online with you because of the COVID pandemic. So just about all of our activities have been affected by it. I want to talk about one of the great positives that happened this year. Local governments early on moved quickly to address the pandemic, issued orders to wear masks, limited public gatherings, etc. State and federal governments didn't exactly give them applause for that. It took away their authority to do it. But the good news is how we all worked together from the local level to the state level to keep pushing and pushing and pushing on behalf of the health and lives of all Texans. And I think everybody deserves a hand for doing that under tough circumstances, because all of us are subject to the same pandemic. And we all stood up, and we're still standing up as we enter 2021.
Especially Lena Hidalgo down in Harris County, good friend of Progress Texas, our honoree tonight, who not only was one of the first local officials to put in a mask mandate, but it really received a lot of the brunt of the attacks from the governor for doing it. And ultimately, in the long run, she was proven right, and even the governor came around to it. But it took a lot of resilience for her as a local official, first term in office, to stand up and to make that stand. And it was very impressive to see, and very important for us to have a leader like that.
Now, I think it also helped like 500 leaders elsewhere in Texas as well. Her quick action and her steadfast commitment to saving lives and protecting health, I think it helped others step up and try to do the same thing.
Diana, you're going to talk to her in a minute, right?
Yes, so excited.
We just talked about Abbott in two contexts. And if there's someone who's going to get coal for Christmas, it's going to be Governor Abbott. I mean, if you think about it, the White House, the Trump White House, said Abbott do better for COVID. And they're not doing a good job at the White House either. So it just goes to show how poorly he handled this whole thing. And maybe coal is even too good for him.
I don't know. You get coal to Abbott, you might like coal. Energy,
From a solar panel.
We can give him sticks.
Yeah.
So Ed, what was your highlight this year?
For me, it's the fact that Progress Texas helped shape 1,300 stories in this year, and Progress Texas shaping 1,300 stories, more than 1,300 stories, I think is so big because it gives voice to so many progressive causes out there, whether it's an issue or a candidate or an activist, to anything to show the diversity of the state, that this is not a one-sided state. This is a state with many different viewpoints, and we help get that out there. And in addition to those 1,300 stories, more than 200 pieces of original content, nearly 1 billion impressions in media, hundreds of thousands in social media, providing that voice, providing that presence day in and day out, I think is so important for our state. To me, I'm really proud of that work, not only of the Progress Texas team, but all of our partners and all the activists and candidates who help make all of that possible.
As Ed mentioned, I am also super proud of this work, and I would add a couple of things. When you talk about the diversity and media coverage that comes with this, it's not just us going on TV, it's not just us talking to reporters, but we're sending our partners to TV, we're sending our partners to reporters for stories that they're experts on. And then we also did a research project to encourage the media here in Texas to include more diverse sources. And so I think all around, I'm super proud of that effort as well, Ed.
Yeah, and as our comms person, our communications person, I hope that you would be. You're responsible for a lot of it.
Well, we had so much good work this year, and I'm so proud of the work that every one of you has done this year. But our work isn't done. We have Pledge starting in January, and so the fight continues. So speaking of continuing, after this, we're going to talk to Judge Lina Hidalgo, which is really exciting. So thank you all so much for joining us, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, y'all.
Everyone.